Welcome back to Showjumping 101, the podcast hosted by me, Sam Forrest, and presented by Joanne Sloan Allen and Sammy Elderha, where we dig into the realities of life in high-performance show jumping. As we head into a new season, it's easy to talk about fresh starts and clean slates, but for many riders, last year's injuries, falls and setbacks don't just disappear just because the calendar changes. In this episode, Joanne and Sammy are joined once again by mindset performance coach Sandy Robertson and fitness and nutrition coach Amir Fit to tackle one of the biggest challenges in the sport: how to come back stronger mentally and physically after injury. From riding defensively and fear in the ring to trusting preparation, managing recovery and knowing when to push and when to pause, this is an honest conversation about resilience, confidence, and why recovery is just as important as training. Whether you're returning from injury, carrying mental baggage, or simply trying to perform consistently in a sport where nothing is guaranteed, this episode offers practical tools and real-world insight from people who live it every day.
So thinking ahead now, obviously, we're at the start of a new season, so it should be fresh mindset, trying to leave baggage behind. So I'm thinking about anybody, touch wood, hopefully this year is injury free, but we've all, each and every one of us actually sitting here right now, have had to deal with injuries last year.
Mm.
How do we basically mentally and then physically move on from that, Sandy? Because how do we prevent ourselves from carrying that baggage that we start to? Because I find that if you start riding defensively, that's when you get falls. You have to actually, when you go in the ring, not think about what could possibly happen that's wrong, negative. So, what's the best way mentally for you to promote this strength and resilience in the ring?
So I think there's a few different things that you can do, and it's always really useful to find out what works for you as well. So you're not, again, stuck on something that someone else is doing. So there's a lot of different variants, but a really good thing is anchor before action. So before you start to do anything, like make yourself just stop and have a breath first. Think about what it is you're trying to do and start from that place rather than getting on, feeling a bit heightened, kicking on, and everything else just sort of falls into disarray after. Another good one is focusing on the process, not the outcome. So when you're focused on process, you're thinking about these sort of micro actions that we're doing. So you're thinking about balance or thinking about rhythm or tempo rather than thinking about the time allowed or what the rider before you has just done or what the horse did last time you did it or last time you rode it. And then neutral self-talk is a really nice one to master, because if you're talking to yourself neutrally, we're not saying things like don't have a fence, don't fall. We're thinking about riding the line. We're talking about what we're going to do. We're not talking about things being good or bad. So we're almost like indifferent with our self-talk and quite factual rather than overhyping it or being negative about it. I could go on and on about that. But the last one actually is a really good one, is like staying in sensation. So rather than thinking too much, really focus on what you can feel, really focus again on your contact or your bend or breath work or anything like that. So that really keeps you present.
Yeah, because funny enough, actually, it's true. There's a very fine line between walking your course, knowing your course. But then sometimes if you start to overthink and worry about a line, I find that becomes an issue actually.
You make it happen. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, how do you strike that balance in your head between knowing something, but how, like if something is giving you fear, once you put that doubt in your head, it actually becomes reality. Is there a good way
Mhm.
of, how do you work past that mentally?
Definitely. So there's two things. I think we spoke about it in our first podcast, that when we visualize something, that visualization becomes reality. So if we're visualizing it not going particularly well, then you can bet your bottom dollar on it that that's the way we'll ride it. So if you basically trust the trainer, the show day is the day you put the money in the bank. Everything that comes before that is what helps you to go in there feeling confident, knowing you're fit enough, knowing your horse is ready for it, know that you're ready for it. Only put enough detail in that you need to put in and then trust that you know it. That the one thought only technique is really good. So you only let yourself think one thing. And that one thing is not the line that you're worried about.
And so not to complicate things, basically, like, it's not because a lot of the times, even when you come out of the ring, oh, that was so bad, and then you watch the video, it's not as bad as you think. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It,
for that, isn't she? I can
it's
like, oh, it
it,
felt so bad, and we're like,
it's
just watch the
it's
video.
something that I had to learn when I was a lot younger. Is basically, it's never as bad as you think. It's maybe obviously you had a few fences down, you had a bad result, you think you rode really bad, and then you watched it and you said, it's not as bad as what you thought it was. And also, when you're walking a course, not to overcomplicate things or overthink things. Things just happen in the ring, and you just have to be able to react to them rather than having a set plan. And that's, yeah, plan is great, but sometimes it does have to change, and you have to be flexible enough. That's me anyway, as a rider, have to be flexible enough to adjust to it. And when you adjust, it doesn't change your whole plan. It just you adjust it for that specific moment, and that's it. You move on, and you come back to what you had planned originally, and so on. So, I mean, just to simplify what you were saying, from what I understood, is try to make things simple and not overthink and overcomplicate things in your head, because that affects your riding in a negative way than a positive way.
And also to allow yourself and you were saying you do it quite naturally, but like a micro recovery. So if you do have a fence, if you do have something, like have a breath, have a second, let the emotion go, and just jump back into the task on hand. So we don't focus on everything's over now, or when you're task orientated, we're just something happened, forget about it and re-enter the task. So the next set of 5 jumps become completely different from the first 4 that you've just done. That allowing yourself that recovery time to be like, okay, that's done. What's next? Rather than, oh God.
Exactly. Split-second decision, and you had to adjust for that moment, and then you just come back to where you had started, and so on. But if you change for a small thing, for instance, you had to simplify it again. If you had to add a stride and a line that you weren't planning on doing, as soon as you finish that line, you come back into the rhythm that you originally wanted to finish the rest of the course, and so on. And that's where training comes in. The horses helps us out, we help them out, and that's why I always say it's a team competition, or a team performance between horse and rider, and everybody that is behind that as well. It's not just the rider doing the things, it's two athletes really helping each other out in the ring.
I think also from putting our other hats on as trainers, I think we're responsible when we're actually giving advice or walking the course. We have to also be aware of, not if we see something that is intimidating, just not put that onto somebody else. Because while it might be a problem for me, that person doesn't have that issue. That's my issue, not theirs. So transference is also something I think we need to be very aware of. No, because I do see that quite a bit. Because we have a personal issue, we then transfer that onto someone else.
And yeah, there's nothing worse than hearing people be like, gosh, you're going to have to watch that off the corner, or your pony doesn't like this, or your horse is going to look at that. And you see riders literally dying in front of you. I'll never forget the first time I walked my 130 and had somebody with me. I thought it'd be great. And she walked in and, excuse my language, said the F word. She went, F, this is huge. And I was like, oh God, where you need somebody to be like, you're fine. Okay, calm, right, you go.
I've heard that plenty of times, Sandy, and you just have to, yeah, sure, it's big, yeah, okay, no problem.
No, sometimes we, yeah, that's really small.
Yeah,
Fine.
not.
Tiny. Yeah,
You just have to see Joanne next to the jumps, and you know how big they are.
Start walking the course with high heels on.
Funny story actually about this. My first time in World Cup finals was in 2011 in Bosch in Holland, and the biggest Grand Prix I've done prior to that was a 3-star Grand Prix. We qualified through the Arab League, and I'm walking the course the first day, and my trainer at the time was John Lettingham, and we're walking the course, and I suddenly stopped him. And I said, can we stop for a minute? And he looked at me like, what's that guy on about? Like, we're walking the course, why are you stopping me? I said, I really don't want to walk the course behind that person, because she was tiny and the jumps looked humongous next to her. So said, I just really don't want to walk the course behind her. So just wait a second until she moves on. So that was, one of those things that, again, the mental aspect of it plays a bit with your head.
Talking about adjusting a mirror. So as a trainer, obviously as a fitness trainer, someone coming back from injury, how do you deal with that? Because obviously, like, I know you had a lot of injuries yourself recently, and you and I were actually chatting about this, that sometimes your brain won't let you do things. You have to kind of override your brain. How do you know when to push and when not to push?
So what I always find is with your rehab, you have to accept there's going to be things that you can't do for a certain period of time, and that there's things that you can definitely work towards. For example, I want to get a really good sweat on in the gym and I want to do some cardio. I know I'm not ready to run yet, but I can go hard on the bike, I can go hard on the cross trainer, I can go hard on the rower. So there's lots of different ways to get the same stimulus, but it's a lot of it is trial and error as well. And there is a lot of fear in, starting back, as were mentioning with the horses. And it's the same with us as humans as well. Whenever we're going back in, we're thinking, is my body ready for this or not? But we are a lot more resilient than we think. And Sandy, you'll probably back us up. Mentally, it's the biggest challenge. Physically, we're probably ready to push on, but mentally, we have to convince ourselves. It was quite funny. I was in the gym and I was still walking around with crutches. There was a sports physio there. It's like a proper MMA gym, and all the guys, there's world champions in this gym. And the physio just looked at me and said, "Why are you holding them crutches?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Give me them," and he just took them off me and he threw them on the floor. And I looked at him and he said, "Let's go for a walk." And I said, "I can't." He says, "Let's go for a walk." And then I just started walking absolutely perfect with no issues. And he handed me some weights to carry and like in different hands. And it was until I had that confidence with someone to say, let's just go for it. And this is coming from someone like me who's a physio himself, who's coached that many people. We sometimes get into our own heads, even though with other people we can push them on. And I think it is, as I say, a bit of trial and error and just being safe in that environment as well and not trying to overdo it. I mean, I have to admit, I have tried to run on a treadmill, but I had my hands on the side and I was thinking, can my legs take this impact? Tried it a bit. Half an hour later, my ankle had swollen up. So then I knew, okay, I'm maybe not ready for this right now. I'll maybe come back to it in a few weeks.
Yeah. I think it's the hardest thing. It's the fear. It's overcoming the fear in anything at all, whether it's in the ring, whether it's in the gym. Once you've had some sort of an injury, it kind of sometimes it's healthy actually because it can put the brakes a little bit and give you a bit more respect. Because I think we're all guilty of getting complacent, whether it's getting on a horse or going to the gym. Every single one of us is guilty of complacency, I think. And when you start to get complacent, then you start to open the door for risk. Um, but it's fighting that fear. It's that healthy balance of what point do you push and what point do you. And I personally think that when you're in some sort of rehab program, I mean, we have it with the horses, they have a professional guide in the rehab. I think as riders, sometimes we skip that bit. Our horses will have vets, physios, everything. But I think ourselves, we're just guilty of, oh, we can just get back on again. We skip that stage. And I think it's
That
important, whether it's mentally rehabbing or physically rehabbing, that we use that support structure that's available.
I think in general, it's giving yourself time to heal, regardless if
Yeah.
it's a mental or a physical thing. And I'm saying this, and I'm the most guilty of not doing that and just pushing on and trying to move forward. But in hindsight, is not the best thing because you end up opening yourself for more injuries or not riding as good because fear is restricting you in a way or so on. Because I remember the first time I broke my collarbone, so I cut the rehab time by whatever, and I started riding again. But the first time I was going for a jump, I was riding like this, and I never ride like this. You never ride backwards, and I had to really talk to myself while I'm on the horse. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? So I kept it small in the first few days, and I just kept getting my eye back in that I go on the forward stride again. But mentally, it took me, and I never thought it would. After breaking my collarbone, that you think when you're going to a jump, you don't think, you just feel what's happening. So I guess one of the main things is just giving yourself time to heal, regardless of if it's an ankle injury or a mental injury or a fall and you got hurt and a bruise and so on.
I think that's why actually now our sport's a bit late to the party, but catching up because all the other sports have already been ahead of it. The powerfulness of the mental in the sport.
It's recovery in general, actually. Like I watch a lot of other sports and what they do, they are really big on recovery. Like they play football, for instance, they play a game and then the next day or two is just about recovery, whether it's an ice bath, whether it's a massage, whether it's the physio, whether it's stretching, whether it's sauna, whether it's swimming, whatever. But they're really, really big on recovery. And we do that with the horses. Whenever the horses finish, when they come back from the show, they go out to the field, they go out for hacks and things like this, just from a recovery point of view. We're just guilty not doing that ourselves, but I think
We get to go to bed.
it's about time
Yeah.
to think about it and see what.
Top
And I think
athletes in the world, I find, actually recover as hard as they actually train. And that's one thing you're seeing across the board now. People that take their recovery as serious as do their training perform at the highest level.
For a
And I
longer
think,
period.
yeah. And I think the equestrian industry makes that hard for so many different reasons. You know, we could talk about employment law probably, which we won't for this, but the expectation of a rider's duties, and we don't take injuries seriously enough, you know, nearly seriously enough. And if you could ride or can ride with your arm in a splint, or, you know, with enough painkillers to do it, then we do it. Or people let you, which is almost worse. You know, in no other sport would you see somebody on the track. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you not think it's that macho culture? We're fine.
Yeah, it's a different kind of breed, I think.
I mean, I know it's good that we're tough, but there has to be and we don't want it to go the other way. Like we really don't. We need to keep that level of.
Yeah, it can't be too fluffy.
We can't.
Yeah.
We just can't.
It's a tough sport because you're
Yeah.
dealing with an animal,
Yeah.
and it's long hours, and like I said, nothing is guaranteed in show jumping. But this sport in general, like show jumping in general, in my opinion, is a very, very tough sport because nothing is guaranteed to start with. Even though you're the best rider on the best horse, you can fall easily, get eliminated in a class because of whatever happened in the ring. Also, your gains are a lot less than your downs. So you have to be very resilient in your head to keep going. You know, how many shows you go to and you come back with nothing? A lot more than when you go to shows and you perform and you win. So mentally you have to be very strong, physically you have to be very strong, and you have to really come back from bad rounds or bad weekends very quickly because the next one is just around the corner.
I think the difference also in our sport that you have to realize, it's a partnership. You can, like, if you're a tennis player or a football player or any other athlete, you yourself are, you know yourself. So you can actually say, do you know what? Today I'm feeling great. This is the day. And you can nearly pinpoint the day that you are going to be performing at your best. We are always, always at the mercy of another animal. It just might not be feeling it. My horse just today might say, what? I just am not feeling it today. I want to go and lie in my stable. I want to eat a bit of hay and we'll have snooze. There's only so much you can do.
And also it's one of the sports that you cannot come back from. When you have a mistake, it's all done. Your dreams are all shattered. You know what I mean? Like when you have a fence down or a run out or whatever, you can't come back from that. You know, it's done. Your result for that day or for that class is finished. When you talk about tennis, if you know, played one bad set or one bad, you know, whatever, you can come back from that. Football, if they scored against you, you can score 2 goals against, and so on. All other sports, swimming, if you started bad, you can push yourself a little bit and try to recover the time you have lost in the beginning, and so on. But with this,
Well, I think all other sports as well. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but they're played over a greater period of time. So our sport, actually, the work behind the scenes is more than actually when you're actually in the competition. You know, swimming, they have heats and they have, you know, it's not just that one bit. Football, the match goes on for so length of time. So you have so many chances to grasp it back. I think mentally, the problem with our sport is it's keeping the focus for that period of time, that all that work that you've done. And when you go in, and it's actually, that's a big, big mental thing and also physical, because you've so much adrenaline at that moment that you have to handle, you know, and your adrenaline, like outside, if something happens to upset you or to get that adrenaline going early, I'm sure it would be very interesting to see how that pans out. You know, if you have a bad warm up, do you carry that through? How do you get over that? You know?
and again, just quickly, you're juggling a lot of balls as well. Like when you're going to a tennis competition, you're just going there by yourself with your team that is helping you to perform at your best. But when we're going to show jumping competition, you're a trainer, you're a rider, you're sometimes a groom, you're a physio, you know, you're doing so many things, juggling a lot of things, plus having to think about the next show, how you're going to get there and so on. So it's not just that minute you're in the course jumping. There's so many things behind the scenes, and you're carrying so many hats to try to juggle so many balls and so on. So I think that's why mentally we have to be very, very strong. And when something doesn't go good, regardless what it is, once you're on that horse preparing for that competition, which luckily I think I'm good at, is to forget everything and just focus on that moment and try to perform at your best.
Yeah. Have you any good tips, like Sandy, for mentally tidying our brains. I mean, what's a good way to do that rather than having 100 million things running around our brain? I'm quite good at actually dividing things. And actually, when I go in the ring, for me, it's the bell. That's my cue focus. Sometimes I get it wrong, jump the wrong fence, but it doesn't always work.
Well done it. Yeah.
What's a really good strategy? Because everything is about strategy now, because, there is tools to help us. What's a good strategy for that, do you think?
So I think just listening to what you said, as Sam said there, like the pressure for show jumpers is fantastically phenomenal. Everything is, if we were to work out our cost per round, I don't think any of us would ever do it again. The financial implication, the emotional implication, the time and training, the time and prep, horse purchases, sales, everything for that 45 seconds. It's absolutely huge. Again, we've spoken about it before, that men compartmentalize differently from women because we are far more likely to be thinking about our emotional state and everything that's happening round about us, whereas men generally will be thinking about the competitor, the time, and far more practical things. So being able to, if you're somebody who does analyse and overthink, being able to write down anything that's on your mind so you can trust that it's somewhere safe, we can debunk it and we can get back to it. We don't have to remember it. We don't have to carry the load. And then completing or tailoring or creating your own warm-up routine. And part of that warm-up routine is till the end point where, like you say, where it's when the bell goes or when you take your boots off or when you put your spurs on or something that says this is game time now. And every emotion you feel from that point on is the emotion that we reframe to say that means I'm ready now. That doesn't mean I'm stressed now. It doesn't mean I'm anxious now. That means that I'm ready now. Maybe we can work with that.
For me, it's overrated. I'm just like, phew.
I want
I
it.
think mentally you have to
Actually,
start. Sorry, go ahead, Abby.
no, I actually remember, Sam. There was a time, and this tells me everything about you. There was a time that you didn't perform at your best, and the way you summarized it was just incredible. You said that that's just the way the sport goes. On to the next one, and I love that because, again, the top athletes across all the sports, like you said in tennis, they'll have a bad shot or a bad game, or like in football, they might miss a penalty, miss a big chance. They just say, right, wait until the next one, and that was your response to that performance. It was like, okay, this is the sport. It wasn't great, we're on the next one. And I love that because,
But
when you
I
have
had
someone of that mindset,
Yeah, I had to teach myself that, in fairness, and with the help sometimes of with Joanne as well. Whenever I first came here,
10 minutes.
I could not well as such, but I would be like, if I had a bad round, I would be upset until the next weekend comes and I perform. It didn't affect my performance. Like, I'll go the next weekend and perform well, but between the two weekends, I wasn't, I was just upset, and it and
In Egypt, he said, this is a bit of a problem for me. And it's like kind of, once I have the next class, and this is when he
yeah,
first came over,
I
I
was
went, Sam, we sometimes don't have shows for weeks. I can't live with this. I said, you're going to have to get over this. That's it.
looking forward to the next class to race the last round, if that makes sense. So didn't affect my performance. I would still perform well, but living life was, like, I wasn't just happy with myself, and I was really eager for the next competition to come. So nowadays I can obviously you grow, and you get people that are near you and you trust, that help you with that, and now you do it just without even thinking. So I just, if I have a bad round, I look at the video and see what was the good with it, what was the bad with it, and try to move on and perform better. So I had to teach myself that. I mean, it didn't just come to me naturally, and I think it really doesn't come to anybody naturally. They have to really, really think about it,
work out.
teach themselves how to do it, especially in this sport, because, like I said, you have a lot more downs than ups. So
You
yeah,
really can't carry that baggage.
yeah.
In
No.
terms of adjusting preparation, focus, nutrition wise, Amir, what are really good foods for helping that? Like we've talked about this before, it's very difficult on show day to eat a lot. Most of us, adrenaline's going, you're doing so many things. What are good key things that we can do, we can carry with us that will help?
So the two things people should really focus on is protein and fiber. because the protein will keep you fuller for longer, and the fibers obviously can help with your digestion as well. And again, it's going to keep you fuller for longer. The last thing you want is to have something that's very high in sugar, and unless it's fruit, because obviously that sugar is broken down slightly differently in your liver. But if you're having something high in sugar, your blood sugars are going to go up and down, and you're going to get a crash in energy, probably just before you're about to perform, and that's going to have a big impact on your cognition, but also how you feel. So what you want is slow release energy from, complex carbohydrates, but then the protein and the fiber to try and keep you nice and full as well. But it is definitely, again, a thing of trial and error. Everyone that I've kind of worked with will have different kinds of foods that they like to go to before they perform. You don't want something that's going to take a long time to digest in your stomach as well, because that's going to make you feel heavy, make you feel bloated. Everyone processes food slightly differently. So rice might be great for you, but it might be really bad for me. Potatoes might work better for me, or porridge might work better for me. And obviously with yourself, because of how busy you are, you like to have a good smoothie in the morning. We've talked about this in the previous podcast. You throw everything in and you can kind of sip it as you go. So you're not drinking it all at once, but it's going to fill you. You can just sip on it as you're traveling, which is great.
Yeah, I think it's important to find something like that, because you have your mental preparation, but we have to realize by the end of a busy show day, and it's not even like, I mean, that's what we were talking about, these indoor shows. It's not like you're going to a national show where maybe you have a lot of horses to ride and you can kind of keep going because your adrenaline carries you. The problem in these arenas is you can be jumping at 9 in the morning and 9 at night. It's very hard to carry that motivation, that strength, it's really difficult. You just get this huge dip during the day. That is very hard then. Like, I know that if we've started in the early morning and my class at night, I'd rather have my class in the morning. But these big shows, Sam, can be like, 10 o'clock at night or something?
Yeah. Some
We're
classes.
starting out, and the staff have to motivate. They have to all. It's a good story about that one, Sam, isn't there? On the show, whenever you were in the lead.
Yeah.
This is actually
felt-
really good.
My team really not supporting me that day.
It was so late at night.
Not cool.
Where was that? It was Salzburg?
It was Salzburg, and the first day was like a 140 class, and obviously it's a 4-star show, so you're thinking ahead of like the 150 and the Grand Prix on Sunday. So the first day was like a welcome.
The team were told that this was going to be like a good solid schooling round. So we were thinking it's really late at night.
Yeah.
It was near the
I was
beginning to go.
to go. Class started at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I was fifth to go, and I think there was like 50 in the class, whatever. And I was riding WKD Toronto Zach, my little pony, I call him. Yes, it is a schooling round, but you cannot school him. You just have to go on the rhythm.
Yeah.
The arena is so tight. The arena is so tight that basically every turn, even though you're taking the widest route, is a really small turn. So I came out leading and whatever.
No, we're sitting filming like that.
And obviously
they're all
that involves prize giving and having a horse and for the prize giving. So my team was really not happy.
Came out in the lead, and we're all looking at each other, and he's like a big smile.
And I said, hey, you should be pleased that we're leading a class, not upset because you have to wait for the prize giving. It was a teaching moment for them and myself.
That's great. Yeah, it was after midnight when the prize giving was.
So there was actually like 5 left to go, and I went home. The grooms finished the horses, and I was still in 5th place or something. And I had to text a friend of mine. I said, just in case I'm in top 6, can you please take my prize for me, because he was late in the class. But anyway, we're outside the prize giving. So
yeah, so that does explain how it is really difficult to keep, even when you're in the lead, when you're winning, it's really hard to keep that up there, that motivation.
I think that's where the point
about my performance that day, even though I was clear and I was good, but I didn't feel great because my team didn't support me so much.
You just didn't stick with the plan.
Yeah.
That's how to bear a grudge, isn't it?
But then I won a class. I won with the same horse. I won the 150 with him, and we had to obviously wait for the prize giving, and the whole team was like cheering and happy and taking selfies and team selfies.
As this episode shows, bouncing back in show jumping isn't just about healing bones or getting back in the saddle. It's about rebuilding trust, managing fear, and giving yourself permission to recover properly. From anchoring your focus in the ring to simplifying your thoughts, trusting your preparation, and leaning on the right support team, resilience is something that's built, not rushed. And in a sport where success is never guaranteed and setbacks are part of the journey, learning how to reset quickly is a skill every rider needs. A huge thank you to Sandy Robertson and Amir Fit for their insight, and to Joanne and Sammy for such an open and honest discussion. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to Showjumping 101 and share it with someone who's navigating their own comeback. We'll be back soon with more real conversations from inside the sport. Thanks for listening, and remember, recovery isn't a weakness, it's part of performance.